Hi there, welcome back to my channel for today's video when we can finally reveal the release date and price for the Canon EOS R3 camera. Today is a big day in the calendar as far as photography is concerned, because earlier today Canon finally held their release event, if you like, their announcement event around the EOS R3 mirrorless camera. And this is a camera that, as you well know if you've seen my previous videos or you've watched any videos to do with sports photographers in the R3, it's a really exciting camera body from that of a sports photographer's perspective. I won't go back through all the full spec on this camera. You can check out my earlier videos for that, and also Canon themselves have done this event today, which you can now watch back right here on YouTube if you want to. But the headline kind of news that we got from this camera months ago was that it's going to shoot at 30 frames per second, and that is lightning fast and perfect if you're a sports photographer. In addition to that, it's going to have that eye control autofocus system, something we haven't seen for decades from Canon. That's been totally redesigned from the ground up and is going to be in the R3. And there's also that motorsport tracking feature, which is really interesting if you're a photographer that shoots a lot of motorsport. So motorbikes, touring cars, Formula One, anything else that has an engine and moves quickly, the R3 is going to have a new focus mechanism that is pretty useful for you. So we know why it's exciting. Will I be able to afford the Canon R3 right off the bat? Probably not. Will I attempt to buy it? Almost certainly not. However, it is going to have quite a significant impact, I think, on the camera market, certainly from a used camera perspective. And that, aside from all the technology in this thing that is going to be so exciting and so useful to look at and read about and learn what's coming next as a result of the R3, actually the value in terms of how it can help us as photographers who might not have the means to go out and buy, $5-6 grand worth of new camera, the impact a release like this has on the used market is actually really interesting, and we will come back and touch on that point a little later. Anyway, before we get into any of that, let's get straight down to the juicy detail, not keep you waiting, and that is what has come out of this Canon event today. Okay, so the first thing to discuss here is that this camera is going to be available to buy globally from November. Now, I haven't seen a specific date within November, so a little bit of detail, I guess, yet to find out about that. One thing I was thinking about earlier when I was out driving was that there's been a real chip shortage for electronic devices, so chips that go into phones and cameras and all sorts of other kind of smart devices in the last year due to the pandemic, that thing that's kind of dominated the news and dominated supply chains, whether you're being in apparel or fashion or technology, electronics, whatever. This pandemic has had a real impact on supply chains for just about every industry in the world, and the shortage of chips and other components, is that playing into the release of this camera? We're going to find that out, but basically we're aiming for November. We don't know the specific date, but this will drop in November, and it is crucially available to pre-order now on a load of websites. So I was refreshing this morning at 11 o'clock to see, is this going to drop as soon as that live screening from Canon begun, and yes, it did. Wex Photographic here in the UK, Jessups here in the UK, they both had it up pretty quickly to pre-order for that November date, although it did not specify the release date on those shop pages. Adorama in the US, they're also carrying a pre-order page right now for the Canon EOS R3. So if you want to make those pre-orders, you can go over and make them now. There was a really interesting note in the wording, and this is why I mentioned the chip shortage a moment ago. The wording on one of those sites basically said something about, by placing a pre-order, you're not going to get charged yet, but you will be added to a waiting list so that as and when units come available, those orders will be fulfilled. That suggests, maybe I'm reading too much into it, maybe it's fairly standard, but that to me suggests this isn't going to be available in massive volume from November. Maybe those supply chain issues are still an issue and it's one affecting Canon, but that's me speculating on that. The actual facts are from today, it's available in November globally, and you can now pre-order it from a ton of kind of the big photographic shops and websites online now. how much is the Canon EOS R3 going to cost us to buy brand new on that release date? And that is something we do know now, because I mentioned a little while ago about I was going into all of those websites this morning to check the pricing, and as a result of that we can now see how this is being priced globally. So to look at the three kind of big English speaking markets, just for ease and in this video, here in the UK this camera is going to cost £5,879 on launch day. In the US it is going to be $5,999, so just shy of 6k, and Australian dollars this figures out at 8,599. So by that price, and we know, as Canon have already said, this is going to fall midway between the R5 and the Canon 1DX Mark III in terms of its positioning in the global kind of Canon product lineup. The pricing is pretty much says that also. So for reference point, you're going to be looking at around 7k. I think in the UK it's £6,999 to buy a brand new 1DX Mark III. That is a DSLR, I know. This camera being at £5,879 is just over £1,000 cheaper than that, and kind of falls right in that mid-range between the 1DX Mark III and the R5. Okay, so if you are one of those lucky people that is going to be able to go out and buy this camera on day one, or pre-order it now, ready for purchase when it is available at the back end of this year, then you're going to want to know what you get in the box. Now, I was really interested in this because I was talking to a guy at an event a couple of weeks ago, and he reckoned that Canon might ship an RF to EF lens mount with this camera. That doesn't appear to be the case. As you'd expect, this is normal Canon box, and in that box you're going to get the body itself, the EOS R3 mirrorless camera. As I discussed on my last video, it is going to ship also with the Canon LPE19 rechargeable battery. This is the same one that the 1DX Mark III uses. You're going to get the battery charger for that. You're going to get an AC adapter, the ACE19, and also the DC coupler, the RE19, and a PDE1 USB power adapter. And they're just a different, as you can see on screen here, they're different types of power leads and adapters which will allow you to charge the batteries up. Or also, I think in the case of the coupler, the DC coupler, the DRE19, that is going to allow you, if you're doing a really long video shoot, for example, and you've only got a single battery, that plugs directly into your camera. Could work well on a long video shoot, a long time lapse. That is going to plug right into your camera and allow you continuous power in the same way you plug a coffee machine in or a washing machine. It's always on, it's always plugged in. So that is going to be an option right out of the box on the EOS R3. And then last, obviously, you're going to get the Canon camera strap, which comes with every Canon camera I've ever seen, and the body cap as well. If you want to use EF lenses with this, so I spoke a lot in my last video, I'm definitely a DSLR user. I've got my trusty 1D Mark IV, never too far away, right here. And for that I have a whole series of EF lenses, the 70-200 2.8, the 400 2.8, and a wide angle as well. And if I want to use any of those on the EOS R3, I am obviously going to have to get an adapter. So if you're considering the R3 as a point in time where you might begin the transition from DSLR into mirrorless, then be aware you're going to need to buy yourself the Canon EF to RF mount adapter. That's currently priced, I think, at around £120 here in the UK, and probably a similar price in the US as well. So you will need that if you want to use your EF lenses on the EOS R3, which is an RF mount camera. You will need to buy yourself an adapter. So you should add that cost on to the cost of the body, and probably order that at the same time as you order your R3. Now, the used market is something that might really shift as a result of this camera. I've seen it in the past. I'm currently recording this on an 80D I picked up used. I know loads of photographers, myself being one of them, that have never bought a brand new body, never bought a brand new lens. I always get used gear, probably second, third, fourth hand, I don't know, as long as it works, it's got a guarantee to cover me for the first year, I'm usually pretty happy to invest in used. That ain't gonna change anytime soon. And when I bought this 80D, that price dropped within about 3 weeks, lack of research by me, because a subsequent camera had come out that was also good for video as well. So I'm thinking when the R3 drops, we might see a reduction in price for used cameras such as the 1DX and the 1DX Mark II to incredibly strong DSLRs. I haven't even got to the 1DX myself yet. I'm still on the 1D Mark IV, which is an absolute workhorse and has never let me down, but I will need to update that shortly. So I'm thinking, is the next 6 months, thanks to the R3's impending release, is that going to be perfect time for me maybe to update to another DSLR? Other bodies in the mirrorless range as well, Canon's mirrorless range, they may drop it off in price a little bit used as well as people trade in towards an R3 and the shops try to clear old stock as well. So if you can't afford to buy an R3 like me, don't fear, keep your eyes on eBay, keep your eyes on the used pages of, in the UK, London Camera Exchange, of Wex cameras, of Wilkinson cameras, of all the other ones you can think of. Keep an eye on your used store that you use and just kind of start to track those prices now. If you think you might want to upgrade in the next few months, start to track those prices now, and then you'll really notice if a decline happens around November when this drops. Maybe it'll be into December or January. You'll notice those prices drop, and it might give you a chance to invest for a little cheaper than you'd be able to do right now.